The Big Bad Wolf's Christmas Surprise. Once upon a time, there was a tiny village surrounded by a thick, enchanted forest. And in that forest lived the Big Bad Wolf. Everyone in the village and the forest knew the stories about him, how he blew down houses, chased children, and caused general mischief wherever he went. But lately, the Big Bad Wolf had been keeping to himself. He no longer terrorised the village, nor did he stalk the forest paths. He had become lonely, forgotten, and bitter. It was Christmas Eve, and the entire village was buzzing with excitement. The villagers were placing shiny baubles on their trees, hanging twinkling lights, and preparing grand feasts to share with their friends and families. Laughter and cheer echoed through the streets. But high on a hill, in a dark and cold den, the Big Bad Wolf sat alone, far away from the warmth and joy of the village. The wolf watched from his den as the twinkling lights of the village flickered in the distance. He grumbled to himself, "Christmas, bah! What's so special about it? A bunch of silly decorations and pointless gift-giving." He huffed and turned back to the dark corner of his den. His grumpy mood was made worse by a bothersome and irritating feeling of, well, he wasn't sure what. Lately, he'd noticed that the spirit of Christmas, the joy, the cheer, the magic, seemed to be fading. The forest was quieter, the laughter not as bright, and even the snow seemed less sparkling. Not that he cared, but he wondered what had caused it all. As the night grew darker and the villagers started to head to their beds, the Big Bad Wolf was startled by a loud thud outside his den. He pricked his ears and cautiously moved towards the entrance. To his surprise, lying in the snow outside his den was a large, shimmering sack. It sparkled with a soft glow and seemed to warm the air around it. "What now?" he muttered, his nose twitching as he inspected the sack. The wolf gingerly opened the top, peering inside. To his shock, the sack was filled with swirling and glittering magic, and as he stared at it, he felt overcome with joy and awe at the magic of Christmas. The wolf snapped the sack closed again, looking at the tag on it. "To the village, your Christmas spirit, love from Santa Claus." The wolf's eyes widened. "Santa Claus?" he gasped. "This is his sack of Christmas spirit. How did it end up here?" The wolf thought hard about what to do with the sack. What if he just kept it? Finally, he shook his head. "I can't keep this," he muttered. "Christmas may not be for me, but it's important to everyone else." Determined to do the right thing, the wolf knew he had to return the sack to the village before Christmas morning. But how? He couldn't just walk into the village without causing a panic. No one trusted him, and they surely wouldn't believe he was bringing Christmas spirit back instead of taking it away. As he thought about what to do, the wolf's sharp ears picked up the sound of footsteps crunching through the snow. He looked up to see a young boy from the village wandering towards his den. The boy was shivering, his red coat flapping in the cold wind, and he looked lost. "Hey!" the wolf called out before he could stop himself. "What are you doing out here, kid?" The boy froze, wide-eyed and terrified. The Big Bad Wolf?" he stammered. I didn't mean to." The wolf sighed, trying not to scare the boy any further. "Relax, kid, I'm not going to hurt you." "What are you doing so far from the village on Christmas Eve?" I got lost," the boy admitted, his teeth chattering from the cold. "I went into the forest to find a perfect Christmas tree for my family, but then it got dark, and now I can't find my way home." The wolf tilted his head. "Well, you're lucky you didn't get caught by something worse than me. The forest can be dangerous at night." The boy moved quickly to stand closer to the wolf, no longer afraid of him. He looked up at the wolf's large, looming figure and smiled nervously, and then glanced at the shimmering sack behind him. "What's that?" The wolf hesitated, but then decided to tell the truth. "This is Santa's bag of Christmas spirit. It fell near my den, and now I need to return it to the village before Christmas morning, or no one will have a happy Christmas." The boy's eyes lit up. "Santa's bag? Why, this is incredible! But how will you get into the village?" I was hoping you might help me," with a wry smile. "I can get you back through the forest, and if you can guide me through the village without causing a fuss, we can get the Christmas spirit back where it belongs." The boy thought for a moment, then held out his hand. The wolf looked at it cautiously, and then reached out his paw, and they shook on it. The wolf picked up the magical sack and tossed it over his shoulder. Together, the boy and the wolf carefully made their way through the forest and toward the village. As they approached the edge of the village, the boy turned to the wolf. "We'll go through the back streets and into the square where the big tree is," the boy whispered. "That's where Santa always leaves the Christmas spirit for everyone to share." The wolf nodded, following the boy's lead as they crept through the snowy streets, dodging windows and avoiding the villagers. Soon they reached the village square, where a giant Christmas tree stood proudly in the middle. It sparkled with lights, but something about it seemed dimmer than usual. Without the Christmas spirit, the tree couldn't shine the way it was meant to. The wolf gently placed the sack beneath the tree, and as soon as he did, the tree glowed brighter and the air around them filled with the sweet scent of pine and cinnamon, and the entire village seemed to hum with warmth and joy. The Christmas spirit had returned. The boy looked at the wolf in awe. "You did it! You brought Christmas back!" The wolf smiled, a real genuine smile, and felt something warm in his chest. "I suppose I did," he said quietly. Just then, a soft jingle filled the air, and a familiar voice boomed from above.
"Ho, ho, ho! What do we have here?"
The wolf and the boy looked up to see Santa Claus landing his sleigh in the square. Santa hopped out and walked over to them with a twinkle in his eye. "Ah, my sack! I wondered where it had gone," Santa said, patting the wolf on the back. "Thank you, wolf. You've saved Christmas for everyone." The wolf blushed, not used to praise. It was the right thing to do. Santa smiled warmly. "Indeed it was. You've shown that even the big bad wolf can have a heart full of Christmas spirit." The boy grinned and tugged at the wolf's paw. "See? You're not so bad after all." With a jolly laugh, Santa handed the wolf a small wrapped gift. "For you, my friend. Merry Christmas." The wolf unwrapped the gift to find a beautifully crafted ornament, a shining star to place on the village Christmas tree. For the first time in his life, the big bad wolf felt a sense of belonging, and not only that, but the true joy of Christmas. The end, and Merry Christmas. Once upon a time, not very far away from your town, in a cosy brick house, there lived 3 little pigs. They felt safe and happy in their sturdy home, especially as they knew they had seen off the big bad wolf, and he would bother them no longer. And with Christmas just around the corner, they were bustling with excitement as they readied themselves and their home to celebrate their favourite time of the year together. Each little pig had their own special job to prepare for the festivities. The first pig, who loved to play and have fun, made the games and activities they would play on the big day: Pin the Tail on the Wolf, Dizzy Piggy, and Woodland Whispers. The second pig, who liked to make things beautiful, decorated the house with holly and ivy, twinkling lights, paper snowflakes, and a huge Christmas tree overflowing with tinkling bells, shiny baubles, and sparkling tinsel. The third pig, who was very clever, was in charge of the food. Making a festive feast is pretty tricky, and it takes a lot of concentrating and skill, so he was the perfect pig for the job. He made buttery roasted parsnips and creamy cauliflower cheese, sweet nutty stuffing and crisp roast potatoes. And for pudding, he made a sumptuous cherry pie and custard. Everything looked delicious. But as they were busy with their preparations, the pigs couldn't help but feel that something was missing. Just as they were pondering this, there was a loud knock on the door. The pigs jumped and looked at each other, unsure who would be visiting them on Christmas Day. The first pig peered through the window and gasped. "It's a fox!" he squeaked, trembling a little. The other pigs exchanged worried glances. The fox stood on the doorstep, shivering and cold, looking hungry and lonely, and the pigs straight away felt sorry for him. After all, it was Christmas, a time of year to be open and generous, and they were sure the fox felt the same. So they opened the door. Come in, the pigs cried. Inside, the fox was ushered over to the fire and given a cup of hot cocoa and a blanket. They bustled around him, trying to help him feel warm and comfortable and involving him in their Christmas traditions. As the fox warmed up, he became quite chatty, and the pigs were pleased to see that he wanted to get involved in the preparations. He tried to help the first pig with getting the games ready, but he found it quite tricky to understand all the rules, and he kept saying things like, "These games don't look very fun. Can't we play Chase the Chase the Mouse?" It was a bit annoying, as the first pig had spent so much time preparing, so he suggested that the fox help with the decorating. The fox tried helping the second pig to hang a string of lights over the fireplace, but he kept getting tangled up. He said, "All these decorations are a bit over the top, aren't they? We usually just go out hunting, go for a lovely walk and then come home for supper." This sort of comment wasn't really that helpful, so the second pig suggested that the fox help in the kitchen. The fox tried to help the third pig with buttering the parsnips, but he kept doing it a bit too roughly, and the parsnips were turning to mush. "Is this all we're having?" the fox said, wrinkling up his nose. "Well, what do you usually have?" the third pig inquired, a little irritated. The fox thought for a moment. "Sometimes we have rabbit," he said, putting the butter knife down on the table. "Sometimes we have pheasant," he said, wiping his fingers clean. "But our favourite thing to have for Christmas dinner," he said as he licked his lips, "is pig." He leapt over the table towards the pigs, and they squealed and ran through the front door and out into the snowy night. The woods were empty. All the other creatures were at home celebrating with their families, so there was no one there to help as the pigs ran through the night, the fox snapping at their heels. Suddenly, there wasn't just one fox, not two, but a whole family of foxes chasing the pigs. This had been their plan from the start. The pigs ran and ran, jumping over fallen logs and scraping through brambles, and they were starting to get tired, starting to slow down. Suddenly, they heard a howl, and then, there in front of them was the big, bad wolf, snarling and snapping his jaws. The pigs were terrified, but not as terrified as the foxes. They were enemies of the wolf and had been for generations. The foxes turned tail and scampered back into the woods, whimpering. The pigs were frozen in place, trembling at the new danger before them. But the wolf stopped snarling, sat down, and smiled nervously at them. "Hello, pigs," he said gently. The pigs said nothing. They had been fooled already tonight, and they wouldn't allow it to happen again. "I understand that it might be hard to trust me after everything that happened," the wolf said. "You know, all that huffing and puffing business." He looked a little embarrassed. "Well, I mean to make amends. I was actually on my way to your very nice house now to give you these." He held open his sack, and inside were delicately wrapped Christmas presents, addressed to the pigs. "For us?" the pigs said. "For you," the wolf confirmed. "I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I regret how I treated you all. It's no wonder I've never really had any friends when that's how I used to behave. And, well, Christmas is just such a terrible time to be lonely." He offered them a small, hopeful smile. The pigs looked at each other.
What?
They finally realised what was missing from their Christmas. They had been having such a wonderful time together, but deep down, they knew that the wolf was out in the woods, cold and alone, and they simply couldn't enjoy Christmas because of it. "Come on," the pigs said. "You better come home with us." "Really?" the wolf said, his ears pricking up in surprise. "After everything?" "Yep," the pig said. "After all, Christmas is a time for eating, drinking, games, presents and fun. But it's also a time for kindness, for generosity and for forgiveness. So that's what we'll do. Let's go." the wolf followed them home through the woods, chatting and laughing all the way. As they entered the cosy little brick house, he was instantly warmed by the fire. But he also felt warm in his heart too, because he knew he had 3 new friends and his old life was far behind him. He gave the pigs their presents: a banjo for the pig who loved to play and have fun, brightly coloured paints for the pig who loved beautiful things, and a library card for the clever pig so he could read all the books he wanted and would never have to stop learning. The pigs were delighted. The wolf enjoyed the delicious supper and all the games, and the pigs decided that as their special guest, and because he was the tallest, he could put the star at the top of the tree. At the end of the evening, they all hugged the wolf, and he thanked them for their kindness. They invited him back the next year and all the years after that, and he gratefully accepted, knowing that they would now be lifelong friends. The end. And Merry Christmas. Once upon a time, in the magical, wintry land of the North Pole, there was a fantastical workshop like no other. It was full of bustling elves, tinkling bells, and the smell of fresh gingerbread. This was Santa's workshop, where Christmas magic came to life every day of the year. In this workshop, toys were built, presents were wrapped, and joy was made out of thin air for children all over the world. Of course, Santa Claus himself was in charge of the workshop, but he did not work alone. The elves were small but mighty, fueled by Christmas cheer and extremely skilled in their work. This story is about 2 of those elves in particular. Holly had an eye for detail, and she had a very important job. She was responsible for making sure every doll had just the right dress, every car had the smoothest wheels, and every teddy bear had a perfectly tied ribbon. She took her job very seriously, and she never liked to ask for help. Jingle was the inventor of the workshop. He was always creating new gadgets and tools to help make Christmas even more magical. He took his job seriously too, but he could be quite shy, and he often worried about what other people would think of his ideas. One chilly December morning, just a few days before Christmas Eve, Santa gathered all the elves together in the main workshop hall. His twinkling eyes were filled with excitement, but there was a hint of concern on his face.
Listen up, everyone, Santa said. We have a problem. Some of the most important toys, the ones for children who've been extra good, have been left in the old barn by mistake. They must be retrieved before Christmas Eve, otherwise the children won't have any presents.
The elves gasped and whispered among themselves.
Don't worry,
Santa continued, smiling reassuringly.
I'm sure it's just a mix-up, but I'll need some volunteers to go and collect them. Anyone?
Holly and Jingle immediately raised their hands.
We'll go,
they said in unison. Santa beamed.
I knew I could count on you two. The old barn is in the far northern forest. It's quite a tricky road, and the weather report says a blizzard is on its way, so it won't be easy. But you'll probably be fine.
Holly and Jingle quickly bundled up warmly. They grabbed a map from Santa, which would help guide them through the North Pole's tricky tracks and winding woods, and off they went, waving goodbye to the rest of the elves. As they made their way through the snow-covered woods, Holly and Jingle chatted eagerly about their mission. Holly couldn't wait to see the special toys, and Jingle was already thinking about how he could improve the toy delivery system for next year. The journey started off smoothly, but as they ventured deeper into the forest, the wind began to pick up. Snowflakes swirled around them, and the once clear path became harder to see.
This blizzard is coming in fast,
Holly said, squinting against the cold wind.
We should check the map to make sure we're still going the right way.
Jingle pulled the map out of his pocket and unfurled it. But as he did, a sharp gust of wind tore it from his grasp, and it was carried away, lost forever.
Oh no!
Jingle cried.
What will we do now?
Holly tried to raise Jingle's spirits.
Don't worry, Jingle. I'm sure you'll think of something. You always do.
Jingle felt a little tingle of pride at this. He had a big think and finally he said,
I do have an idea.
and he pulled some special magical binoculars out of his pocket. This amazing invention let him see the nearest cup of hot cocoa, and he immediately lowered them and pointed into the snowy woods, announcing,
That way.
The two elves hurried on and found themselves at a cosy little house made entirely of gingerbread. The walls were covered in sugared jellies, the roof was lined with gumdrops, and a candy cane chimney puffed out sweet-smelling smoke. A golden glow shone from the windows, inviting them inside. They knocked hopefully on the gingerbread door, and, to their surprise, it swung open of its own accord, revealing the most enticing sight. Inside was a warm, glowing room filled with twinkling lights, a roaring fireplace, and the sweet smell of gingerbread and hot cocoa. Sitting by the fire was an old elf, dressed in a patchwork coat and wearing a jolly smile.
Well, well,
The old elf said with a chuckle.
what do we have here? Two of Santa's finest lost in the storm?
Holly and Jingle nodded and told the old elf about their mission.
I see.
The old elf said kindly.
The old barn's not too far from here, but the blizzard has hidden the path. Perhaps you would like some help?
Holly shifted nervously at this. She didn't like to ask for help, but she knew this was the only way.
Yes, please.
She said nervously, shifting from one foot to the other. The old elf reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, shimmering crystal shaped like a snowflake.
Take this,
He said, handing it to Holly.
It's a snowflake compass. It will point you in the right direction, no matter how fierce the storm. Just follow where it leads and you'll be at the barn in no time.
Thank you.
Holly said, her eyes wide with gratitude. Jingle just gaped at the snowflake compass in wonderment.
How does it work?
The old elf chuckled again.
Just a little Christmas magic, dear boy. Now hurry along. You still have time to make it.
Holly and Jingle thanked the old elf again and stepped back out into the snowy night. As soon as Holly held up the compass, it began to glow softly, showing them the way to go. The wind still howled and the snow still swirled around them, but the compass's glow guided their way. After walking for what felt like hours, the glow of the barn's lights finally appeared through the trees. Holly and Jingle cheered with relief as they hurried towards it. Once inside the barn, they found rows and rows of the most beautiful toys they had ever seen. There were dolls dressed in velvet gowns, wooden trains painted with bright colours, and teddy bears as soft as clouds.
We found them.
Holly exclaimed, her face glowing with excitement. Jingle grinned.
Now let's get them back to the workshop before Santa loads up the sleigh.
The two elves worked quickly, loading the toys onto a special sled that Jingle had found and modified with extra speed boosters. With the magical compass still guiding them, Holly and Jingle made their way back through the forest, the sled gliding smoothly over the snow. As they approached Santa's workshop, they could see the other elves waving and cheering. Santa was standing at the entrance, his face lit up with joy as Holly and Jingle arrived.
Well done, my dear elves, Santa boomed, clapping his hands. You're just in time. You've saved Christmas.
Holly and Jingle beamed with pride as the other elves helped unload the toys and placed them into Santa's magical sack. Santa gave them both a big, warm hug.
You two have shown bravery, teamwork, and best of all, you believed in yourselves,
Santa said kindly.
I couldn't be prouder.
And as Santa flew off into the starry sky, his sleigh full of toys and his heart full of joy, Holly and Jingle shared a hot cup of cocoa and celebrated their great success. They both knew that this Christmas would be one they would never forget. The end. And Merry Christmas. Once upon a time, there was a guitar-playing donkey. He lived on a farm, and it was his job to pull the cart to market and back each week. But the rest of the time, he lay comfortably in the hay barn, practicing his guitar, writing songs, and getting lost in the music. It was a pleasant life, but the donkey dreamt of more. He had heard of a wonderful place where music rang out from the streets and everyone danced and sang wherever they went. Bremen, a place where a donkey could make his fortune and folks would come from far and wide to hear him play. So one day, the donkey slung his guitar over his shoulder and set off. Along the way, he passed through a small town, and as he wandered the streets, he heard the sound of drumming. A snappy and jumping beat that thumped through his bones and made his toes tap in time. He followed the groovy sound and found a dog playing the drums while strangers tossed coins into his upturned hat. "I'm going to Bremen," the donkey said. "Would you like to come with me?" "Would I ever?" the dog said, and they set off on their journey together. Next, they came across the sound of a piano playing a jaunty and jazzy tune that made their shoulders bob up and down in time. They followed the sound and found a cat tinkling away at the keys. "We're going to Bremen," they said. "Would you like to come?" "Yes, please," the cat said, and off they went. As they carried on through the town, they heard sweet, soulful singing, the voice so beautiful it almost brought them to tears. They followed the sound and found a rooster shining shoes while singing his heart out. "We're going to Bremen," they said. "Would you like to come?" "You better believe it," the rooster said, and the happy band was complete. They set off for Bremen. By day, they would travel through towns and countryside, sharing their dreams and telling the wonderful stories they had each heard of Bremen. At night, they would play their music at inns in exchange for a hot meal and a room to sleep in. As they played their instruments together, they became more and more in tune with their bandmates, able to tell what the others were going to do next without a word. It seemed like their heartbeats were all thumping to the same tune, and they had never been happier. One night, they came across a cottage in the woods. There had been no inn or anywhere to stay for miles, and they were growing cold and tired. They decided to knock on the door to ask if they could stay in a barn or stable. But as they got closer, they saw through the windows that the cottage was not occupied by a friendly family, as they'd hoped, but a gang of nasty robbers. The robbers were eating a delicious stolen feast and laughing about all the people they had swindled and pickpocketed and the houses they had broken into that day. The musicians were all very cross. "These awful robbers must be taught a lesson," the donkey said, and the others nodded in agreement. Without a word, they each knew what they should do. They banged on the door, making the robbers rise from the table to investigate the source of the sound. The musicians hid in the woods, the darkness making it impossible for the robbers to see. The robbers split up and began to search the trees, carrying clubs and daggers, ready to fight whoever was out there. But together with their new friends, the musicians felt braver than they ever had. They were unstoppable when they all worked together. All at once, the musicians came together, the donkey standing firm, the dog leaping onto his back, the cat springing onto the dog's shoulders, and the rooster flapping up onto the cat's shoulders. And together, they made the most terrifying noise, braying and snorting and barking and growling and hissing and yowling and crowing and squawking. The robbers cowered in fear at the horrible beast in the shadows, and then ran away as fast as they could, tripping over themselves and crying for their mums. When they were sure the coast was clear, the musicians leapt down and fell about laughing. They filed into the cottage and sat down to enjoy the feast laid out before them. The cottage was warm and felt like home, and they sat around the fire playing their instruments until they all fell asleep, totally at peace. The cat was awoken by a strange sound outside, a scratching at the door. Someone was trying to get in. The cat peeped through the window and saw it was one of the robbers who had returned to try and take back the cottage. The cat hurried to rouse his companions, and again, they knew just what to do. Quickly, they blew out the candles and put out the fire, so the cottage was in complete darkness. When the robber came through the door, they made their deafening cacophony of sound again, and this time the donkey lashed out with a swift kick, the dog took a chomping bite, the cat swiped a sharp scratch, and the rooster gave a hard peck. The robber was totally bamboozled and utterly terrified. He ran away as fast as his legs could carry him and told his fellow robbers that the cottage was haunted and that they must never return. And they never ever did. The next day, when the musicians were all rested and well fed, they packed their belongings and readied themselves to leave the cottage to head to Bremen as planned. They stood outside the cottage, a little forlorn. "Maybe," said the dog, "we should stay another night, just to make sure we're really well rested and can be our best selves when we get to Bremen." "Oh yes, good idea," the others all said. "We mustn't be too tired when we get there." And so they all unpacked their bags and filed back into the cottage. They took up their comfy seats by the fire and began playing their instruments again, playing a peaceful melody. "Do you know," said the donkey, "I don't believe I have ever been as happy as this." The others all nodded truthfully. "I don't think I could ever be happier," said the rooster. The musicians all looked at one another and had the same thought at the same time, as they often did. "What if," the dog said, "what if we just stayed here?" The others all sighed in relief. "That's what I was going to say," they all echoed. At that, they all fell about laughing again, full of joy and contentment. And so the musicians stayed in that cottage for the rest of their days, playing their instruments and living in harmony. They put on shows for weary travellers and gave music lessons to the young animals in the woods. They never felt the need to leave their new home, and not one of them ever set foot in Bremen. Not even once. They had all they needed right there. Great friends, a happy home, and sweet, sweet music. And they all lived happily ever after. Once upon a time, in a small village, there lived a young boy who spent all of his days sitting high up on a hill under a maple tree. He had just one job: to watch over the sheep from the big, bad wolf. The wolf, too, had just one job: to hunt down sheep to satisfy his hunger. The boy often found himself bored. Guarding the sheep day in, day out left him wishing for a different job, or perhaps some excitement. More than anything, he hated sitting alone all day, every day. So, one day, he decided to shout, "Help! Help! A wolf is chasing the sheep, and they're all running away!" The villagers heard the boy's cries, and they all dropped what they were doing and quickly rushed to help. But when they reached the top of the hill, there was no wolf, just the boy and the sheep, peacefully resting in the greenest grass you could imagine. "Where is the wolf?" the villagers asked. "There is no wolf," the boy said, unable to stop himself from laughing. The villagers were upset. They were exhausted from running and frustrated about their interrupted work. One of the men turned around and shouted at the boy, "Don't cry wolf when there is no wolf around. Only call for help when you truly need it." The boy found all of this very amusing. He was quite the little prankster and enjoyed seeing people rush up the hill for no reason. So, the next day, the boy walked up the hill with his flock. He cupped his hands around his mouth and yelled again, "Help! Wolf! Help me! He's going to eat all the sheep in my flock!" Once more, the villagers dropped what they were doing and ran up the hill. And once again, there was no wolf. "Where is the wolf?" the villagers asked. "There is no wolf," the boy replied, and once again he couldn't help but laugh. Again, a man turned and firmly said, "Don't cry wolf when there isn't one around. Only call for help when you truly need it." The next morning, the boy went up the hill with his flock again. And wouldn't you know it, this time, he actually saw a real wolf hiding in the nearby forest. At first, the boy didn't know what to do, but then he started yelling, "Help! Wolf! Help!" The people in the village heard his cries, but this time they knew better and didn't come running up the hill. The villagers kept hearing his cries, but didn't move an inch. They wouldn't fall for the same trick again. Now all the sheep ran away and were lost, chased off by the wolf. The boy was very saddened by this and sat down by the tree again. But this time, there was no smile on his face. At the end of the day, the villagers waited as usual for the boy to bring back the flock of sheep. But that evening, the boy didn't return. They decided to go and see what was wrong. The villagers gathered around the boy. Through his tears, he asked, "Why didn't you come to help me? A big bad wolf chased all the sheep away. I yelled and yelled, but no one came to help." The villagers were angry because their sheep were lost. The man who had always advised the boy to stop yelling as a joke said, "Now you see, no one believes a liar. How are we supposed to know if it was real or if you just did it for your amusement again?" From that day on, the boy always told the truth. Once upon a time, at the edge of a quiet forest, there lived a boy named Peter. Peter wasn't one for sitting around. Oh no, he was always off on some adventure, climbing trees, chasing butterflies, or seeing how far he could skip a stone across the pond. Peter lived with his grandpa, a grumpy sort of fellow, but mostly just loved Peter to bits. Grandpa was always reminding him,
"Don't go wandering out beyond the garden gate. It's dangerous out there."
He'd wag his finger and talk about the wolf that prowled in the forest. Peter didn't really believe in this wolf. He'd never seen it, not even a paw print. Probably just a big dog, he thought, shrugging. But he did dream of the wolf. He would dream about it sneaking in through his window or waiting for him on his way to school. He had to know for sure if the wolf was real. So one sunny morning, when Peter saw the garden gate was slightly open, he thought, what could go wrong? And slipped outside. Peter hadn't gone far when he bumped into a little robin, fluttering from branch to branch.
Tweet, tweet! What's up, Peter?
Chirped the robin. "Oh, you know, just exploring," Peter said casually, as though he didn't have strict instructions to stay inside. The robin tilted its head.
You're pretty brave. What about the wolf?
Peter snorted. "There's no wolf,"
Suit yourself,
said the robin, hopping from tree to tree beside him. Just then, a duck waddled up, quacking loudly. "Peter, what are you doing outside the garden?" the duck demanded. "Same as you," Peter said, hands on his hips. "Well, I'm out here because the pond inside is boring," huffed the duck.
It's a shame you can't just fly away like me.
The robin taunted.
It must be such a sad little life, just bobbing around in that muddy little pond.
The duck quacked indignantly at the robin and flapped his wings crossly, and before you knew it, the robin and the duck were arguing. Peter rolled his eyes. All right, calm down, you two." As the robin and the duck squabbled, Peter heard a soft meow. "Trouble brewing, Peter?" purred a sleek black cat slinking towards them. "Nah, just these two bird brains," Peter replied. The cat's eyes gleamed. "That little robin looks tasty." "Don't even think about it," warned Peter. The robin fluffed up his feathers, offended.
Excuse me? You choke on me, furball.
Before the cat could pounce, Peter raised his voice. "Enough! Let's all just..." But then, a deep, low growl rolled through the trees like thunder. Peter froze. The robin froze. The duck froze mid-quack. Even the cat, who was usually too cool to care, froze. Out from the shadows with golden eyes that gleamed like fire, stepped the wolf. "Whoa," whispered Peter. Okay, so Grandpa really wasn't kidding. The wolf licked its lips, his eyes flicking from one delicious morsel to the next. The robin, the duck, the cat and Peter didn't waste another second. They each turned and fled. The duck flapped and waddled as fast as it could toward the pond. The robin zipped up to a high branch. The cat bolted to the nearest tree and scrambled up like its life depended on it, which it definitely did. But Peter, he grabbed a thick branch and stood his ground. "You're not getting past me," he said, though his heart was pounding like a drum. The wolf lunged, snapping its jaws, but Peter was quick. He dodged left, then right, swinging his branch like a knight with a sword.
Over here!
Shouted the robin, flapping and diving at the wolf's head to distract it. Peter spotted a rope hanging from a tree. An idea struck him like lightning. He grabbed the rope, climbed the tree faster than he thought possible, and tied a loop. "Hey, big bad wolf!" Peter shouted. The wolf snarled and leapt towards him, but Peter dropped the loop right over its head and shoulders. With a mighty tug, he pulled the rope tight around the wolf's middle. The wolf thrashed and growled, but it was stuck, swinging upside down from the tree branch. Just then, Peter heard a familiar voice shouting, "Peter, where are you?" It was Grandpa, running towards him with a group of hunters. They stopped short, staring in amazement at the sight of Peter holding the rope, and the wolf tied up like a big furry package. "You caught it?" one hunter asked, jaw dropped. Peter grinned. "Well, I had some help," he said, nodding to the robin, duck and cat, who all looked pretty pleased with themselves. Grandpa sighed, shaking his head. "Peter, you're grounded for a week." Peter frowned. And, Grandpa added with a wink, "you're the bravest kid I know." The hunters carefully tied the wolf up and were about to take it away when the wolf looked up at Peter, fear and desperation in his yellow eyes. "Wait," Peter said. "What are you going to do with him?" The hunters looked grave. One of them knelt down before Peter and put his hand on his shoulder. "This wolf won't be a danger to you anymore, young man." "You're not going to hurt him, are you?" Peter asked, his eyes wide with shock. The hunter shifted from one foot to the other and couldn't seem to meet Peter's eye. "There must be another way," Peter said. He thought, and just as before, an idea hit him like lightning. "What about the zoo?" he said suddenly. "They have lovely big enclosures and lots of other wolves, and he would be comfortable and well fed, and we would be safe from him, and he would be safe from us. Could that work?" The hunters smiled and said, "Yes, Peter, that would work." The wolf looked at Peter again, and he swore he could see the relief and gratitude in the wolf's eyes. Peter stepped towards the wolf, dodging Grandpa's hand that tried to pull him back, and he reached out to stroke the wolf's soft fur. The wolf stayed perfectly still. "Okay," Peter said gently, turning to the hunters. "You can take him." So the hunters took the wolf away, and Peter returned to the garden, where Grandpa made a big pot of soup to celebrate. The robin stayed to share the crumbs, and the duck quacked about its narrow escape, and the cat curled up by the fire like nothing had happened. But Peter still dreamed of the wolf every night, wondering if he had made the right decision, hoping that he really was having a good life in the zoo. A year later, Peter and his grandfather visited the zoo together. They rushed past the naughty monkeys, the towering giraffes and the ferocious tigers, until they reached the wolf enclosure. They watched and waited, and finally they saw the wolf from the forest step out tentatively from his den, followed by a slightly smaller wolf. The smaller one nuzzled his neck and then turned her head to look back into the den, and 3 fluffy little cubs tumbled and rolled out one by one. They jumped and pawed at the wolf, tugging his ears and licking his face. Peter and his grandfather laughed, and the wolf looked up at Peter, recognition shining in his eyes. He stared for a long time and then dipped his chin at Peter, who nodded back. That night, Peter dreamed of the wolf. He dreamed of riding on the wolf's back, his hands dug deep into the wolf's fur, holding tight, racing through the forest, the wind whipping his face. After that, he never dreamed of the wolf again, because he knew for a fact that he had done the right thing. And so, Peter and the wolf lived happily ever after. The end. Once upon a time, there was a tiny little mouse. He lived with his Mama Mouse and Papa Mouse and his 500 mouse brothers and sisters in a big nest made out of grass and sticks. With that many brothers and sisters, it was hard for the mouse to stand out or make his parents proud of him. He dreamed of being special, or maybe even famous, but he found there was nothing he was really very good at. One of his sisters was an amazing singer, and one of his brothers could do all of his times tables, even 7. He had another brother who could do a backflip and another sister who painted the most beautiful finger paintings. He couldn't do any of those things. He couldn't cook. He didn't know how to build nests or invent things. He wasn't good at telling jokes or doing magic tricks. He tried everything, but was disappointed time and time again. On a particularly bad day, after the mouse was finished trying to find out if he could hold his breath underwater the longest, he decided it was time to take a break. Once he had finished coughing up water, he decided to go for a walk.
"I've had enough," he said to himself. "I'll never be good at anything, and no one will ever notice me."
Dripping wet and a bit embarrassed, he trudged off, away from the nest and his family. He walked through the grass and past the watering hole where the giraffes, zebras and hippos were cooling off in the midday sun. They didn't notice him either. The mouse kept going, feeling absolutely miserable. He wasn't sure where he was going, but he needed some space, away from his back-flipping, times-tabling mouse brothers and sisters. He walked across the dry, dusty ground towards an acacia tree, and looking high up at the branches, he decided to climb. For a moment, he thought perhaps this could be his talent. He could climb really well. But then he remembered that that's just a mouse thing, and it didn't make him special at all. Still, he wasn't sure what else to do, so up he went. He reached one of the top branches and stopped to rest. Just then, a huge lion with a massive fluffy mane came ambling over. The lion flopped onto the ground, sending a cloud of dust up into the air. The mouse froze. What was he going to do now? He'd have to wait until the lion left again, but it was hot, and the lion's belly looked round and full. He would be there for hours. The lion started snoring, and the mouse tried to get comfy for a long stay. Suddenly, a great big wasp came and buzzed around the mouse's head. The mouse tried to swat it away, but the wasp just kept coming back, buzzing around his head again and again. "Buzz off," the mouse whispered, careful not to wake the lion. With all of the swatting and swinging, the mouse lost his balance, and before he could stop himself, he went toppling off the branch. Down, down, down he went, and landed in a tangled heap right on top of the lion's mane. The mouse was terrified. He didn't dare move a muscle. He waited for the lion to wake up, but by some miracle, the lion stayed asleep. Slowly, carefully, the mouse freed himself from the thick mane and crept down the lion's shoulder, over his paw, and back down to the dirt. He took one last look at the lion to check he was still asleep, and finding that he was, the mouse started home, breathing a huge sigh of relief. Little did he know that the puff of air that he released vibrated one of the lion's long, wiry whiskers, and the lion opened one eye. Suddenly, the lion's huge paw came down on the mouse's head, and he was trapped. It was dark and scary under the lion's paw, and the mouse trembled. Said the lion, licking his lips. "A tasty little afternoon snack. I do love a juicy little mouse."
"No, don't eat me,"
squeaked the mouse. "I'll do anything." The lion thought about it for a moment.
"Like what?" he asked. "Can you do a magic trick?"
The mouse could not believe it. He couldn't do a magic trick to save his life, and he'd made peace with that, except now it might actually save his life. He suddenly felt very sad about it again.
"I can't do anything special," the mouse said sadly. "I don't have any talents. I'm not particularly clever or handsome. But I promise that if I can ever repay you, I will. If you ever need help, I will be there."
The lion paused for a moment, and then he threw his head back and laughed, a roaring, whole-body-shaking laugh. He slowly lifted his paw and came nose to nose with the mouse.
"I'm not sure how you'll ever be able to do anything to repay me, tiny little mouse. But you have made me laugh harder than I've laughed in a good long while, so I will let you go."
The mouse didn't look back. He ran and ran all the way home, climbed into bed and got straight under his covers. He was the luckiest mouse alive. Maybe that was his talent. In the next few days, the mouse told his brothers and sisters what had happened with the lion, but none of them believed him. No one had ever spoken to a lion and lived to tell the tale before. How typical that the only impressive thing the mouse had ever done was so fantastic that no one thought it could possibly be true. After a while, the mouse stopped bothering to tell anyone, and soon even he started to wonder whether it had really happened or whether he'd dreamt the whole thing. He gave up on trying to be special too, and instead started dressing up as a superhero at mouse kids' birthday parties. One day, when the mouse was just finishing his hero act at his niece's 6th birthday party, he heard a deafening roar, thundering across the plains. Suddenly, his promise to the lion echoed through his head, and he lurched into action. With his cape flying out behind him, he ran towards the sound as fast as his legs could carry him. All the animals at the watering hole were running too, but they ran the other way, away from the terrifying sound. The roars got louder as he got closer, and he realised the sound was one of terrified panic, not of rage. Finally, he came to the acacia tree, and underneath it he found the lion, caught in a poacher's net. He looked tired, and he was tangled up so tightly that the ropes were digging into his fur. The mouse leapt onto the lion's shoulder and got close to his ear. "I'm here," he said, with his chest bravely puffed out.
Mouse, is that you?
The lion said weakly.
Are you dressed up as a superhero?
"Doesn't matter," the mouse said. "I'm going to rescue you." And the mouse jumped down and started gnawing on the ropes that held the lion. He gnawed and chewed and munched and chomped until the ropes pinged loose and the lion sprang free.
Little mouse, the lion said, you have saved me. How can I ever thank you?
"We're even now," the mouse replied. "My debt is repaid."
Are you absolutely sure there's nothing I can do? The lion said.
"Well," said the mouse, "there is one thing." And so, that is how the mouse came to be delivered back to his mouse brothers and mouse sisters, and Mama Mouse and Papa Mouse, riding high on top of a lion's mane, dressed as a superhero. The lion told the mouse family about his mouse friend's actions.
And he is the bravest, most daring mouse I have ever met.
The mouse felt amazing. Finally, his family were proud of him. But more importantly, he felt proud of himself, because he knew that he had done the right thing when no one else could. And that made him the most special mouse of all. The end. Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed this magical story. If you want to come along on more of our adventures, make sure you subscribe to our channel. There's so much more to be discovered. You can start right now by clicking on our channel and picking your next favourite tale. There really is something for everyone, from daring heroes and mischievous creatures to magical lands and secret wonders. And remember, by subscribing, you'll be the first to know when a brand new story is ready to be enjoyed. Let's go.